How's it going, folks? CR here, your friendly neighborhood gun nut, bringing you another gun control Q&A. You have questions? CR here has answers. Let's take it away. Okay, starting this off with an easy one. Alright, so the big question is, are you talking about for private ownership, or are you talking about getting in the business of either A, manufacturing, or B, selling firearms to government agencies? Those are two different things. Let's start off with private. A lot of people are confused about the laws regarding private ownership of machine guns, like individual, like either trust or personal ownership of them. First big one is that the machine gun has to have been registered as an NFA Title II item prior to May 19th, 1986. And then the second thing is that you got to go through the NFA Title II process. There's no license involved except for the FFL that's transferring it, or doing any repair works on it. That's about it. But with this being said, yes, if you're able to find an M4A1 manufactured prior to that date, there are a few of them, not many of them. It is possible. Bear in mind the last Armalite I saw with select fire capability that was transferable went for about 60 grand. So, I mean, dude, if you have that type of money, more power to you. You got to have the patience to wait and pay the $200 tax stamp and fill out all the paperwork that's necessary. Now, if you're talking about going into the business of manufacturing machine guns for government agencies or selling machine guns to government agencies, well, you'd have to get an FFL for that. And that M4A1 will technically not be yours. It will belong to the business. It will be in your dealer's stock for the purposes of selling or providing demos to government or law enforcement agencies. You know, that's it. It's not going to be like you can just have that M4A1 for yourself. And if you have an FFL, yes, the ATF is going to come by and inspect your place of business. So if you've been taking your dealer stock home with you, you could wind yourself up in a lot of trouble doing that. Okay, another easy one. The hollow point is designed to expand. The reason why you'd have hollow point rounds is so your round would expand inside the target and not over-penetrate. Therefore, reducing the chances that you're going to end up accidentally hitting an innocent bystander. That is the purpose for a hollow point. Okay, so I know I'm fielding a lot of easy ones today. I know. So, to answer this question, even the most ardent gun rights advocates agree, that if you could have a gun control law that removes guns from the criminals and or prevents criminals from obtaining guns and doesn't affect law-abiding citizens, we're in favor of it. Mind you, when we're talking about criminals, we're not talking about the guy who, jaywalked 5 years ago, or the dude that got a speeding ticket 2 years ago, or the guy that has a DUI on their record over 10 years ago, or something like that. We're talking about people who would actually use their firearms in crimes, robbers, rapists, murderers, or hell, even people, if they had some sort of mental condition to where they might hurt themselves, or they probably would hurt themselves with that firearm. Again, we would be in favor of temporarily, and possibly even permanently removing that firearm if you can prove that they're actually a danger to themselves or others. The issue that we're having at hand here, this debate, is that no such laws have really been proposed. I mean, You have the Gun Control Act of 1968, and part of the Gun Control Act of 1968 puts provisions in, for a prohibited class, some of which I can agree with and understand, some of which you're going overboard on this. But you go back and look at the history of gun control in this country, and you find more often than not many of these gun control laws disproportionately affect law-abiding citizens. Our first major gun control act in this country was the National Firearms Act of 1934. It disproportionately affected law-abiding citizens more than it did anything to actually prevent crime. However, this act is still in place today. And coming forward to today's proposals, they will disproportionately affect law-abiding citizens. One such example is the, quote, assault weapons ban, end quote. That will disproportionately affect law-abiding citizens. The AR-15 is the most common rifle platform in this country today that is being sold and purchased. Just about every gun owner I know, I say just about, because I know there are exceptions to the rule, have an AR-15 of some sort. But yet when you talk to people who are in favor of the ban on AR-15s, it gets down to the mentality of, well, we don't think you need it, therefore you shouldn't have it. It doesn't matter that you're more likely to be beaten to death than you are to be killed by a murderer wielding an AR-15. And, the sources are FBI's own homicide statistics. It doesn't matter that even if you do ban AR-15s, they're still going to be criminals that get their hands on them anyway. In fact, when you bring that point up to many people in favor of the ban on the AR-15, they will sit there and say, well, if criminals are going to get their hands on them anyway, well, why don't we just legalize murder? It's like these people can't tell the difference between going out and maliciously killing somebody versus simply owning an AR-15. Another such example, universal background checks, as they call it. Again, Johnny and Ricky, when they want to transfer their firearm lawfully because they're law-abiding citizens, will have to go to the dealer, pay the fee for the NICS check, probably pay a fee from the dealer just for using their services, just to transfer a firearm. People who commit straw purchases or buy firearms for people they know are prohibited are not going to go and get a background check done on them. That's just fact. It's already illegal to buy a firearm and transfer it to somebody who is a prohibited person. Sorry, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, they're definitely not going to if they're not following that law as is, they're probably not going to be following that universal background check law either. I mean, those are a few examples. Anyway, I've continued on with this question enough, so I'm moving on to the next question. Okay, so I'm going to have a little bit of difficulty giving a specific answer on this one, mainly because I don't have any information other than what's provided in this question about this particular case. But the fact of the matter is that New York has restrictive laws on replica guns. In New York City, it gets even worse. New York City, you have to have a license to have an air gun, airsoft gun, or paintball gun. Those cap guns we used to play with when we were kids, those are illegal in New York City. It's illegal for you to manufacture a look-alike gun in New York City or have a look-alike gun in New York City. I think there are certain exceptions. I think, like if you're filming a movie But then, of course, even then, there are a lot of restrictions on that one. I think you have to actually have the police there on site, for that. Yeah, and I don't know all the details of the law there, but again, yes, they have a severe firearm derangement syndrome in New York. And guys in upstate, and outside of New York City, basically, yes, I understand that there are a lot of firearms enthusiasts outside of New York City, but guys, that New York City pretty much runs the show in New York State, and your voices get drowned out. So don't think I've discounted you guys in this portion. But for the vast majority of people in your state, and yes, the vast majority of them are in New York City, they have a firearms derangement syndrome. Not only do they not like real guns, they don't like anything that reminds them of real guns. Believe me, I know. I've dated women from New York, and I've been up to New York a few times. One such example, I was up at New York with a now ex-girlfriend. We actually walked into a gun store in New York, and I'd asked if I could see a firearm there, that they had. Wasn't interested in buying it. Obviously I couldn't, being a Texas resident. But the guy at the counter said, "Hey, look, man, the fact of the matter is we can't show you this firearm. They have cameras in the store. And according to New York law, I'm supposed to show my ID, and they don't always check every ID on the camera. But if it shows that you're not a New York citizen, you don't have a New York license or something like that, I forget exactly what he said, then they get in trouble for even letting me hold the firearm in the store, even though I wasn't intending to buy it. I wasn't intending to take it out of there. I was just wanting to look at it. That's how bad their laws are in New York. And yes, I can imagine they give a headache to people who have airsoft guns, air guns, and stuff like that as well. And this, again, as I say, why people who do participate in the hobby of airsoft, or they just have air rifles and that's it. It's why you guys should be speaking up against gun control laws too, because they might eventually put some laws on the books that hurt you guys. A prime example for airsofters, the National Firearms Agreement they made in the 90s in Australia. Your hobby pretty much got banned overnight. So, with that being said, I'm going to move on to the next question. American here, and there's an easy answer to this one. You shouldn't. In fact, I'm actually going to take this a step further and say I don't want you here. And I'm definitely not alone in this one. In fact, if you think that there's any shortage of people who want to move to America, well, I invite you to take a look at who we elected as president. Donald Trump, you remember that guy, the guy whose campaign promise was to build that wall? So, if you think that we're going to lose sleep over you not coming to the U.S., well, you're sorely mistaken. Me personally, I do have a major problem with people who immigrate to one country just to get there, bitch and complain about the country's customs, laws, culture, etc., and demand the country change for them. When the fact of the matter is that it's not the country's job to change to accommodate you. It's your job. And if you really didn't like their customs, culture, or laws, then you should have never moved to this country in the first place. You, on the other hand, you still have an option not to move here. And it sounds like you haven't even, with this question, committed to even deciding to move here. It sounds like you're still contemplating that decision. And the fact that you're still contemplating this decision, yet will come to Quora, and bitch and complain about our laws and culture just shows that, you really shouldn't move here. I mean, you don't see me moving to New York and then bitching about New York gun laws. I just don't move to New York. Ditto for California. So, if our gun laws, our freedom to own firearms, and the fact that people exercise this freedom is such an issue that you can't bear, or it even annoys you even in the slightest, just stay in your own country. In fact, please do take some of our gun controllers with you. Invite our gun controllers to move to your country. It'll make guys like me happy. Alright, so this concludes this iteration of Gun Control Q&A. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope it was informative. But any comments, questions, concerns, we got the comment section. Let me know what you think. I'm always curious to know. Y'all take her easy out there, and have a great day.